It's been a while since we've done a video on the BC1. In fact, it may have been several years. So we want to go over information on our current BC1, the 2025 model. Not a lot has changed in the last few years on the BC1 like it has with many of our other roasters, but we have added the MagnaHelic airflow gauge so you can monitor your airflow. What we're going to do is go through the setup on this as well as some features so that you can be prepared to decide whether a BC1 would work good for your small coffee shop or as a sample roaster or for a home roaster. First of all, I want to tell you a little bit about the voltage regulator. All of our roasters are 220 power that can be used throughout the world, but since the United States has 110 power, most of our roasters from the BC8 down to the BC1 come with a voltage converter, a 110 voltage converter. And as you can see on the front, even though it's got a 110 voltage plug on most of these and a USB plug, our focus is going to be on plugging the roaster into the 220 output, because that's what you need, 220 electricity. And of course, if you're using one of these, you're plugging into a typical 110, 120 line. So on the back, you need to make sure that whatever line you're plugged into, which should be a 110, 120, that you mark that on the back. And some of them have a toggle switch that you turn, and some, in this case, this pops out. It's like a plug, and it would plug into the 110. Now, on a note on this, different voltage converters may have different numbers. It may say 115, or it might even say 120. That's all in that same range, and that's what you want to plug into, because you're getting your power from a 110, 120 source, and the converter is converting it to 220. If you were to leave it, a lot of them come set up at 200 or 220. If you were to leave it that way, then it's not converting the power. It would keep the power the same, and that would mean you'd be trying to run your roaster on a 110 line, and a lot of the motors either would work slow or they wouldn't work at all, and probably the solenoid would not open up when you try to start it and so forth. So you got to make sure, if you're using a 110, 120 voltage converter, that you set it up properly. And all that information's in the manual, but we just wanted to go over it with you right there. So we've plugged it into the 220. We have it set on 110 in the back. We power it on. In this case, somebody left the machine on, so it started up immediately. But we're going to go through details about it. Now, these come standard as LP or liquid propane models, and they come set up with a 3/8 inch brass union. I'll show you that. So your 3/8 inch brass union is right there, and we've got it hooked into a LPG regulator with a 10-foot line. Ours is a Marshall 1912-197. On the BC1, you really don't need a regulator that's that powerful, so you could buy our cheaper one, which is an 11 to 13 water column regulator, and it comes with a 5-foot line, which is usually sufficient. But if you need a longer line, you can either let us know or order it online. As mentioned, this one comes with the MagnaHelic air gauge. All of our roasters now come standard, no extra cost, for the MagnaHelic air gauge, which allows you to track your airflow through the roaster and also ensure that your exhaust setup is functioning properly. On a BC1, because we use the same components basically as on the big roasters, we had less room to work with, so you only get one temperature control, a BT or bean temperature control. Here's the hot air volume, and since we are using a manual damper, we recommend that you turn the hot air volume to 100. You never need to turn it down except for maybe if you're emptying the chaff unit in between roasts. You can cut it down to 0, make sure the fans stop before you open the chaff unit to vacuum or brush out your chaff. Then you would turn it back on and continue with another roast. You would never do that in between a roast. You would never do that during a roast. It would always be in between a roast or when you're done roasting. Down here you got your power button, which powers on the machine. It also powers on the electronics and the airflow. And then you've got your roasting button, which is the igniter. As you can hear it there, it's buzzing to ignite, but because there's no gas in the going into the burners, because we don't have the needle gas valve on, after a few seconds it will shut down and set off an alarm telling you something's not right. You need to get more gas or need to make an adjustment in the airflow to get that done. So when we turn on the gas, after we've done an inspection to make sure there's no gas leaks in the lines, we can turn on the gas a bit, and we always try to have our airflow set at about 1 or 2. Always have to have airflow so that once the burner's inside light, the air is pulled upward to the drum and it doesn't backflash, which could cause damage over time. Then we can press our igniter, and as you can see, I have the gas set up pretty high. Sometimes initially on the first start it may not start right away, and this time it did. And so when it starts, you can see the roasting or the igniter button lights up, and then through your burner room window you can see the flame. The last button is the cooling button, which you would use when you're getting ready to drop your beans into the cooling tray to cool the beans quickly. Won't turn that on right now. We're going to go ahead and preheat it. And once it gets preheated, we're going to do a roast. The BC1 will roast anywhere from 3 ounces up to a maximum of 1 pound. We're going to roast today 12 ounces in our demo. While we're letting it preheat, we thought we would discuss a few points on the roaster so that you could learn a little bit more about what it's capable of. I don't have this tightened down like I should, so we're getting a little buzzing, but this is your hopper door gateway, which allows the beans to go into the drum. Also on this side, you can see there's a spare pre-drilled hole that's capped right there for an additional, if you want to add a fidget and do the hot air control. Also there's another pre-drilled hole right here if you want to hook in another bean temperature and do both those for a fidget, and perhaps use, if you're using something other than Artisan, or if you're using Artisan, you could use it for Cropster or Artisan. The trier spoon here, when the arrow is pointing up, that means it's filling. It's a pretty good sized trier spoon that will hold a nice sample, as we'll see during the roast. Unlike our BC2 and up, this one doesn't have a lamp, but you can easily purchase a small battery operated lamp and attach it either to the side of the cooling tray or set it beside the roaster if you need that extra light. And then you have a viewing window right here through the door. When the beans pour into the cooling tray, if you want, you can turn this slightly so it doesn't bulk up in one spot. And then when the beans are completely cooled, you take off the cooling tray, pour it into your bag or whatever dispenser you plan on putting it in. And then of course this is the door that opens the door to the drum. And as you can see right here is the silicone tube that goes over to our Magnehelic airflow gauge, which we provide information in every gauge on how to install. It's very simple. And then of course this is your, I don't know if you can see over there, this is your chaff unit, which holds enough chaff for about 3 or 4 roasts, and then you'll want to empty it. And it uses a 45 watt chaff fan, which is the same as on the BC2. As you can see on every roaster, there is a debris tray along with the chaff unit. The debris tray is simply because you have to have a little bit of a gap between the front plate and the drum. As the heat expands, you don't want it rubbing against the front plate, and so at the beginning of the roast a little bit of debris may fall in there. If you ever notice excessive debris falling in there, it means your airflow is a bit low, and you should turn that up so that a lot of debris is not falling in there. As we've shown in previous videos, if you ever notice a lot of debris or even beans falling in there, it means over time your drum has come out of alignment, and there's a few things you need to do to adjust that. Not too complicated. Although the BC1 and 2 do not have the new bearing holder on the front like our BC3 and up roasters do, where you can adjust the drum on the fly right on the front. But nevertheless, it's something that doesn't have to be done very often, and it's not too complicated to do. All of our roasters allow you to record profiles of your roast and then bring those profiles up in the background when you want to repeat them using Artisan software, keeping in mind that our machines are manually operated, but still easy to follow the profile in Artisan once you've developed one. Also, there's a lot of benefits in having Artisan, such as some of the predictive features and so forth. So to hook up Artisan is not difficult at all. You do have to install the latest version of Artisan on a pretty much newer computer, and then you need to install the proper driver. All of our roasters from 2023 onward allow Bluetooth connection, and of course they've always allowed USB connection as well. So we're going to show you how simple it is once you've installed the driver and the software, how to connect it. So on a Mac, you can go to the little apple on the left, go to System Settings, and I'm assuming on a PC you can also go to your System Settings, then go to your Bluetooth, and it's going to search for nearby devices. You can see on this particular one, it shows there was a device already connected, but that was another machine we tested. You shouldn't have this issue unless you're running 2 different BC roasters, so we're going to forget that one. So here we see the nearby device. I'm going to connect to it, and then once connected, as you can see, it's in my devices. Now we can hit the on button on Artisan, and as you can see, it shows you the bean temperature. And I don't have my settings right on that. It shouldn't be 46, it should be 460. So I'll set the settings correct on the BT on the roaster.